Alex Pereira versus Magomed Ankalaev 2 will not be close. With UFC 319 completing the other week, UFC 320 is our next pay-per-view at the beginning of October, where Alex Pereira will take on Magomed Ankalaev to try to win back the UFC Light Heavyweight Championship. In this video, I'm going to break down the fight. I'm going to break down both the fighters and how this matchup is going to look. We're going to talk about their past fight and what this fight's going to look like going into it, and then I will give you guys a prediction on who's going to win this fight. So make sure you stay to the end to see that, and then we will discuss the outlook for the rest of the light heavyweight division. And if you haven't subscribed yet, we're on the road to 1,000 subscribers, but let's get right into this video. So looking back at the first time Magomed Ankalaev and Alex Pereira fought, it was earlier this year in the spring. It was UFC 313, and Alex Pereira was the light heavyweight champion. Now going into this fight, we had many videos leading up to this. People were very split on who was going to win this match. On one side, you had Alex Pereira, who's a very active champion, defending all the time, and he's one of the best strikers we've seen in the UFC in the light heavyweight division. Then on the other hand, you had Magomed Ankalaev, who's a great striker, but also a great wrestler. He's very well-rounded, and we have not seen Pereira against a wrestler yet thus far in his career. A lot of people were wondering if this wrestling was going to be too much for Alex Pereira, and if Magomed was just going to be able to dominate Alex Pereira on the ground. However, to everyone's surprise, Magomed Ankalaev went something like 0 for 11 for takedowns. It was something crazy. We all thought he'd be able to out-wrestle Alex and hold him on the ground. A lot of people predicted it was going to be a boring fight, and Magomed was just going to win a unanimous decision at the end after holding Alex down for 5 rounds, but that did not happen. If anything, at the end of one of the rounds, Alex Pereira even got a takedown trip on Magomed Ankalaev, so that was very different from what we all expected, and it's not like they were bad shots coming from Magomed Ankalaev. Alex Pereira's takedown defense just looked very good this fight. However, something that did happen was Magomed Ankalaev was able to hold Alex Pereira up against the cage. And something else that happened is he outstruck Alex Pereira. Yes, he kept Alex Pereira on the back foot, which made him look like a worse striker, and Magomed Ankalaev was able to keep the pace on him and really never let Alex Pereira get his shots off on him. However, it was a closer fight than you remember. People say Alex Pereira won 2 rounds. Some people tried making the case for 3 rounds. I don't see it. But nonetheless, that is by far the worst that we have seen Alex Pereira look in the octagon throughout his entire UFC career. So going into this next fight, being that he won 2 rounds, people think he can make the changes to win 3 rounds or maybe even get a knockout and win this fight against Magomed Ankalaev. And I can't blame you for the thinking. I sit on the fence and go back and forth all the time between going, yeah, if it was that close of a fight, damn, man. Got disrupted by the fire alarm there, but the house is still standing, so we'll keep going with this video. But yes, if it was that close of a fight the first time, a lot of people, myself including, have had the thought in our head that Alex Pereira can make the changes needed to win this fight. However, the more I think about it, the less I think that is likely to happen. But real quickly, if you do think Pereira is going to win for all the reasons I just said, or maybe some of your own reasons, please comment down below. I want to hear your guys' opinions. Why will Alex Pereira win this fight? Share them down below and we'll have a discussion about it. And then you could also hit that subscribe button because we upload 2 to 3 high quality UFC videos a week and we're almost at 1,000 subscribers. But as I said before, I do think that Magomed Ankalaev will win this fight. I thought Alex Pereira would, but the more I think about it, I think Magomed Ankalaev is going to be the fighter that comes out on top at UFC 320. So yes, Pereira can make the changes to win this fight, but let's look at Magomed Ankalaev. If Magomed just gets one of his 11 takedowns he shot on Pereira in the first fight, he can definitely win the second fight. We don't know how Alex is going to be able to defend off his back. Pereira has looked fine off of his back in the past, but he has not been fighting anyone near as good of a grappler as Magomed Ankalaev. So if Magomed is able to get him down, and that is a big if because we did not see that in the first fight, but with how good Magomed is at wrestling, it is definitely a possibility in this next fight. So if he is able to get him down, with how good of a wrestler Magomed Ankalaev is that going to be the end of the fight for Alex Pereira? Will Alex be able to get back up? I don't know. But going into the next point, Magomed Ankalaev looked like the better striker. He looked quicker and he was keeping that pace on Alex Pereira and keeping him on his back foot. If he is able to keep Alex Pereira from getting on his lead foot and putting the pressure on him, I think it's going to be another bad night for Alex Pereira in the octagon. And to my next point, which plays into that one, is the age. Alex Pereira is 38 years old, past his prime. I know in the heavier weight divisions, your prime can extend defend longer in your career. But 38 is still past your prime no matter how you spin it. And Magomed Ankalaev is 33, which is right in his prime. This is the best fighting Magomed will ever be doing. And that is something that's going to play a factor in this fight, especially when we're talking about striking, pacing, cardio, who's going to have who on the back foot. You have a guy in his prime versus a fighter who came over from kickboxing who doesn't have the wrestler Dagestan cardio that Magomed Ankalaev may have. So that is going to be a huge factor when going into this fight. I mean, when do you guys ever see the 37, 38-year-old fighter improve going into their next fight? We see this from people in their young 30s all the time, but at the end of your 30s, you're not really making improvements. You're slowing down fast in your late 30s. You're getting worse every time you fight. When you're facing someone like Magomed Ankalaev, who's at the peak of his game, maybe even still getting better, I think that's not good. And as I've said before to all my subscribers, I bring insider news that you will not find elsewhere. And for today's Herrick Insider News, we have another key reason why Alex Pereira will not win this fight is because he's not focused on the UFC. Now, this isn't a personal dig at Alex, but it is a known fact right now that Alex Pereira is actively filming a movie. I'll put pictures on the screen now to show you guys what I'm talking about, but this is current. Like this month, in August 2025, Alex Pereira is filming a movie, and basically a month from now, he has a rematch fight against the hardest fighter he's faced in his career trying to win his title back. I don't think that's good timing. Now, from a personal standpoint, I get it. As I said, Alex Pereira is in his late 30s. His UFC career, whether you like it or not, we all don't like it, but it is coming to an end. So Alex Pereira has to cash in on this popularity and fame while he has it, get these movies, get these sponsorships that he can, because he said before how important money is to him, and we know he has multiple kids to raise. But when we're looking at UFC 320 and we're looking at this fight of Alex Pereira versus Magomed Ankalaev, it's already going to be a hard fight that Alex is an underdog in, but if you're going to be filming a movie during your training camp, I just don't think that your head can fully be focused on the fight. I don't see how it's possible, and I think that's going to spell trouble for Alex Pereira, and that is a huge reason why I do think that Magomed Ankalaev will win this fight. And I'm on the side with a lot of you guys here. I would prefer Alex Pereira to win. I think he's a more exciting fighter. I mean, he's a very likable guy. He fights 3 or 4 times a year as champion, which is so refreshing to see in an age where we have fighters fighting once or twice a year once they win the belt. So I would love for Pereira to win the championship back, give us a couple cool more knockouts before the end of his UFC career, which is inevitable at this point. But I will tell you guys, I am worried about his status on the all-time list if he loses this fight. And why might you say that? You'd be like, Travis, he had 3-4 title defenses last year. He's getting all these wins. He's very active. He's saving UFC cards. He's champion in the middleweight and the light heavyweight division. And yes, all these points are true, and he's beaten all-time greats like Israel Adesanya. However, a lot of the MMA fans are really going to discredit Alex Pereira's legacy if he doesn't win this fight, whether it's fair or not. And I'll tell you exactly what they're going to say. They're going to say that Alex Pereira is a kickboxer who came over to the UFC from Glory Kickboxing, sped ran through the middleweight division, got gifted a title shot against a washed Israel Adesanya because of their rivalry, and then he split with a washed Israel Adesanya and then moved up to light heavyweight division, which is largely considered one of the weakest men's weight divisions in the UFC, knocked out a bunch of only strikers while he came from a striking sport in kickboxing, so he didn't have to worry about grappling, while ducking the only wrestler in his division in Magomed Ankalaev that is good. And then as soon as he faces Magomed Ankalaev after ducking him, it's during Ramadan and he still gets beat by Magomed Ankalaev, then they're going to say Alex Pereira took the time off that he needed, he got half a year off, came back, and then still lost to Magomed Ankalaev. I'm telling you right now, they're going to discredit Alex Pereira's whole legacy. And I don't totally agree with that. There are some points that are valid there, but you can't discredit this man's whole legacy. He does have 4 title defenses in a year, which is insanely impressive. The age and speed at which he's rose to a superstar in the UFC cannot be discredited. And Magomed Ankalaev is genuinely a great light heavyweight, and I do think that he will beat Alex Pereira at 320 and then go on to have an impressive title reign at the light heavyweight division. However, it is what's going to be said out there. And I also do not think that Israel Adesanya was washed at the time he was fighting Alex Pereira. But that is another conversation for another time that will be had on this channel, so make sure you subscribe to see that. But now let's look at the outlook for each fighter if they win or if they lose. If Alex Pereira wins, then I don't think they're going to give an immediate rematch to Ankalaev. I think they're going to make Ankalaev have another win or two before they face him up against Pereira again, because the UFC does not like Magomed Ankalaev. But they do love Alex Pereira. And I think if Pereira wins, he may have a couple more title defenses against opponents he can beat and then retire as the champion in the UFC. Or I think Alex Pereira will try his luck at heavyweight, see if he could win a 3rd belt there going for the legacy, and then maybe retire after that, and then he might go to boxing to get some big money fights, because he has mentioned in the past how important money is to him. Now, Alex Pereira going to heavyweight, I don't think is the best idea. We will talk about that a minute down the road here later in this video, so stay tuned for that. But if Alex Pereira loses, I don't know what will happen either, because are you going to have him just fight a bunch of contenders he's already beat? You're certainly not going to give him an immediate trilogy in the UFC against Magomed Ankalaev. Alex Pereira is too big to go back down to middleweight, and Khamzat Chimaev is a nightmare matchup for Alex Pereira, especially if he's cutting that much weight. And as I said before, we'll talk about heavyweight in a minute, but Tom Aspinall is not an easier matchup for Alex Pereira at heavyweight. So I don't know, are we looking at another fight or two against a striker in retirement, or are we looking at immediate retirement for Alex Pereira if he loses this fight? It is a big question mark going into this one. Now, as the outlook for the division, if Magomed Ankalaev wins this fight, as much as we all probably want Alex Pereira to win this fight, it would be better for the light heavyweight division if Magomed Ankalaev did win this fight. Because if you look at the top 5, Magomed Ankalaev hasn't fought any of these guys. You have fresh matchups in Yuri Prochazka, Jamal Hill, I know he's not top 5, but he's number 6 still. But Khalil Roundtree and Carlos Ulberg are all fresh matchups for Magomed Ankalaev that we haven't seen. So this gives all those guys fresh slates at a title shot and a bunch of new matchups that won't be rematches that we've already seen. And I think if Pereira does face those guys again, he does beat them. But at least with Magomed in here, we could go into the fight saying we've never seen this before. It's a completely new fight for the fans. Now, talking about Alex Pereira, if he goes up to heavyweight, I don't think this is good. I think that Tom Aspinall soundly beats Pereira. He has the size and power as well as amazing wrestling and grappling. I think that he beat Pereira and it wouldn't necessarily be a very close fight. Tom Aspinall would put it on him. And I think that Volkov and probably Jailton Almeida would also beat Alex Pereira. And then aside from that, and maybe Curtis Blades, any of these other heavyweights who aren't great wrestlers, I think it's a fair fight between them and Pereira. Pereira has the size and power to be able to compete with them, so it's just going to come down to who knocks who out. But heavyweight is a tough division for Pereira, but not impossible for him to compete and become champion in. I think Magomed Ankalaev could also move up to heavyweight, but I think, as I mentioned, he has about 4 or 5 fresh matchups in the light heavyweight division as of now. Who knows what contenders come up, so I think Magomed will have a longer reign at the light heavyweight division, and then maybe go up to heavyweight or maybe retire. He is already 33. But as I said previously in the video, the heavier weight classes allow for fighters to still be good later in their careers. So I could see Magomed eventually going up to heavyweight, and maybe Tom Aspinall won't be there anymore, who would currently be the worst matchup for Magomed Ankalaev. But as a final conclusion of this video, it is definitely possible for Pereira to make the necessary changes to beat Magomed Ankalaev at UFC 320. However, I think that due to age and the specific matchup of this fight and how good Magomed looked last time, that he will only look better while Pereira might not be fully focused on the fight and maybe looking worse. That being said, I do think that Magomed Ankalaev will win to retain his light heavyweight championship at UFC 320. But comment down below if you think Magomed Ankalaev or Alex Pereira will win. Let me know and tell me why you think each fighter will win. I'm very interested to hear what you guys think, as this fight could go either way, but I really do think that Magomed Ankalaev will win this fight. But with that being said, thank you guys for watching. If you like the video, hit like. It helps out a lot, and subscribing is great also. We're almost at 1,000 subscribers. But with that being said, I will see you guys later this week in the next upload. Deuces.